Hello and welcome back to another piercing video. In this video I'm going to be talking about all of the piercings that I've had in my life and the process of getting the 54 piercings that I have now. When I was 5 I got my earlobes pierced, and from 5 until about 16, 17, I got a few ear piercings every now and then, but nothing as significant to the amount of piercings that I have now. I'm currently 28, but it wasn't until I was about 21 until I started getting a significant amount of piercings compared to just a standard earlobe or cartilage piercing. When I was 14, I got my belly button pierced, and when I was 15, I got my eyebrow pierced and I got my first nostril piercing. And then when I was 17, I got my second eyebrow piercing, which was right next to the one that was already pierced. But then near the end of 2007, when I was 17, I had an accident where I suffered a spinal cord injury. And while I was in a coma, they removed all of my piercings. So I basically had to start from scratch. Some of my earlobe piercings were still open, but most of them had closed over. While I was in rehab, I re-pierced my labret, and I also got my eyebrow re-pierced. But I made the mistake of thinking I could get my eyebrow pierced again, but every single time they got rejected and I kept getting them re-pierced. So I would not suggest that you do that. If you have one surface piercing that gets rejected, there is a very high chance that every surface piercing you're going to get will reject. And unfortunately, that's the case with me. That's why I don't have any more surface piercings. When I was 19, I thought that it was a good idea to get 4 sets of cartilage piercings done at the same time with a gun. Extremely bad idea, because when I woke up the next morning, one of my ears had swollen over the jewelry. That was so painful to get the jewelry out of my ear, and I had to learn the hard way why piercing guns are a very bad idea. But from 19 through to 21, I continued to get cartilage piercings done with a gun, but I had way too many bad reactions, so I realized just how bad they were. So from 21 to 28, I haven't gotten any more piercings done with a gun. When I was 21, I only had about 12 ear piercings, and I made the decision to want to get 20 ear piercings. And I knew that this would be a slow process, but I think I got it done within a year. And then after that, I realized, geez, I still have room in my ears. So I continued, and now I'm at 48 in my ears. My first ear piercing that wasn't a standard cartilage or a lobe piercing was my tragus. And the next was my rook, then my anti-tragus, then my inner helix, and then my industrial piercing. And now I have 5 conch piercings, 4 inner helix piercings, 1 daith piercing, 1 rook, 2 anti-tragus, 1 industrial, and all of the rest are just cartilage piercings or earlobe piercings. I got my first tongue piercing when I was 23, and my second tongue piercing, I think I was 25 when I got that one. But I've since taken out my first tongue piercing because it was damaging my teeth. And this gets me into the lip piercings that I've had. I have recently taken out 5 lip piercings. The first lip piercing that I took out was my labret, because I started to have receding gums where the inside of it was rubbing against my gums. So I took that one out. And then I made the very, very hard decision and took out all of the rest. But I still have my Medusa because so far it hasn't damaged my teeth. But if that was to ever happen, it's coming out. My first nose piercing was done with a gun, and it was horrible. My eyes were watering and my nose was running, and it took forever to heal. I got my vertical tragus pierced when I was 26, and I had a very high suspicion that this piercing was going to reject because of how bad surface piercings react to me. And I was right. Eventually it rejected, so I had to take it out. But the main reason why I got it done was because I sort of wanted to see how it looked in my ears, and I wanted to experience having the piercing even for a short while. And this might be hard for other people to understand if you don't have many piercings or if you have none at all. It's sort of like having a tattoo. You have one and sometimes you just can't help yourself and you gotta keep going. That's like me with piercings. If I'm having a bad day, I get a piercing. If I want to pick me up, I get a piercing. I've been been asked by a few people if I would suggest that they get all of these piercings done at once. The short answer is hell no. Unless you want your ears to fall out, you do not want to get any more than one piercing done at once. Every time I would get a new piercing, I would get 2 done on the same day, but I wouldn't get them done on the same ear or in the same location. So I would get either an ear piercing on either side, or I would get an ear and a nose, or a lip and an ear, that sort of thing. I've seen way too many YouTube videos of people getting multiple piercings done at once, which is an extremely bad idea. I saw one video where this girl was getting 11 ear piercings on the same day. If you're going to a body piercer that will allow you to do that, that person deserves to lose their piercing license. Getting so many piercings done at the same time makes your immune system need to work so much harder, which can raise the risk of infection, rejection, or making you feel physically sick. Because when your immune system is trying to work so much harder, it's not allowing you to fight off other germs and other bacteria. So getting a cold or a flu is more likely if your immune system is compromised by having so many piercings and it needing to work so much harder. If you're thinking of getting a lot of piercings, there are a few things that you need to think about. If you sleep on your side, make sure you get the piercing on the side you don't sleep on. If you have a job that's really physical, or you do a lot of exercise or a lot of sports, certain piercings can get ripped out, and I've seen that happen. If you have your earlobe stretched, for example, if you're doing any sort of physical activity like sports, or if your job is very demanding and very physical, there is a high chance that your earlobe could get yanked and it gets ripped out. And if your school or your work does not allow piercings, please don't override that by thinking that you're going to hide a piercing. Eventually somebody is going to see it and you're going to get in trouble. I went through a lot when I was at school in New Zealand, because the school that I went to, their dress code was so strict. So every single time I had an ear piercing that was visible, I was asked to take it out, and they took the jewelry, and most of the time they lost it. And there's one more thing that you need to think about. Getting a lot of ear piercings is an extreme commitment. It takes a lot of work for me to keep my ears actually clean and tidy, because I still get a lot of scabs and just flaky bits around my piercings, which I still have to clean. And some of the cartilage piercings that I got done with a gun, every now and then will get infected or will get irritated. But if you want to do it, absolutely go for it, but please take your time and do it slowly. It took over 7 years for me to get from 12 piercings to 54, and it took 23 years to get from 1 piercing to 54. So it's a very slow process, but if you want to do it, go for it. I absolutely love my piercings, but I don't do it for anybody but myself. So if you want to do it for you. I get piercings only for myself. They're not to please anybody else. They're not to make anybody happy. A lot of people don't like them, but that makes absolutely no difference to me, because they're for me. They're not for anybody else. If you have any questions or concerns, please write it in the comments. And if you like this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all, and I'll see you next week.